Everybody, so this is a last minute live stream that I really did not give you guys a lot of notice. So um, I don't expect a lot of people to come here, but if you want to comment, you can. And I may post a link at the end if anybody wants to discuss this issue. But I listened to the debates, right? And I also looked at the candidates, their campaign pages, and really none of them have really posted their position on physician assisted suicide slash euthanasia. Um, if you go to the Green Party, not the U.S. Green Party, but the European Green Party, they do support physician assisted suicide. So does the Libertarian Party, the Republican and Democrats Party. They're both kind of neutral on the issue, but um, when you're voting, I would really encourage you to look at the voter guides. Before I vote, I always look at the voter guides. I don't go by the debates. I don't go by the campaign slogan. You can look at the voter guides, and they list all these issues, and they ask the candidates for their positions on these issues, and then you can actually compare them side by side. So you don't have to do a straight party ticket. Which before the election, I'm probably going to go back over that so that y'all can see how I vote, because I think everybody should vote on that in that manner. Um, but I looked at the voter guides on the issue of euthanasia, and this was actually startling because everyone's saying that Donald Trump is so fascist, that he's so anti-freedom, right? And Kamala Harris gave this whole speech about how Trump doesn't support bodily autonomy. Lo and behold, she's the only candidate who does not support euthanasia slash physician assisted suicide. So in this election, I'm basically going to be a single voter issue that the right to die is fundamental. If you don't have the right to die, you don't have the right to life. And nobody is talking about it. This is an issue that needs to be pushed to the fore. I mean, I don't know. At this late in the game, there's not much that can be done. But I mean, I guess the issue is that it affects so few people, right? It's not until you're terminally ill that you even think about it, right? But everybody's going to have to die at some point, and I think we all should have a say in how we go out. But so this should be at the forefront of everybody's mind. I know a lot of you are younger, so you're not thinking about that. But if you don't have the right to die, you basically don't have any right. So I'm trying to decide how to go about doing. Let's just give a quick overview of the Canadian version of medical assistance with dying, because America basically needs to have a similar law, or it originally came through the Canadian Supreme Court, but we need to have a similar provision. Either the legislature, with our conservative Supreme Court, it's never going to happen. But we need to at least get the conversation going, because nobody's even talking about it. So we're going to quickly go. I'm not going to read through all this, but this is Supreme Court, Canadian Supreme Court case of Carter versus Canada. In Carter, the Supreme Court of Canada held that the criminal laws prohibiting assistance in dying limited the rights to life, liberty, and security of the person under Section 7 of the Canadian Charters of Rights and Freedoms in a manner that was not demonstrably justified under Section 1 of the Charter. The criminal code provisions at issue were paragraphs 241B, which prohibits assisting suicide, and Section 14, which provides that no person may consent to death being inflicted on them. And in America, this is really a state's issue. So all of these states have all of these laws prohibiting assisted suicide. They don't criminalize actual suicide. So you can't prosecute someone for attempting to suicide. They say that you can't prosecute them for attempting to terminate your own life, but under the health and safety code, they actually do have preventive effects, because they can actually they call it apprehension. It's actually just an arrest where they can force you to go into a mental health facility and take drugs, and it's a medical detainment. It's they're not calling it a criminal prosecution, but it's punitive. and then you have a stigma for the rest of your life. So, um, yeah, the laws need to be changed. It should not. It shouldn't be criminal. It should not be. It should not be any forced mental health detention. None of that. No forced drugging or induced like no. That should not be going on. So the court held that laws prohibiting physician-assisted suicide, assisted dying, interfere with the liberty and security of the person of individuals who have a grievous and excuse me, irremediable medical condition. They interfere with the liberty by constraining the ability of such individuals to make decisions concerning their bodily integrity and medical care with security of the person by leaving such individuals to endure intolerable suffering. The court also held that laws deprive some people of life by forcing them to take their own lives prematurely for fear that they could be incapable of doing so when they reach a point where their suffering was intolerable. People talk about this in the abstract, but they don't think about how this actually affects people. That by criminalizing euthanasia, you're actually backing people into a wall, so they actually have to jump off a damn roof or something and have their guts splattered on the ground because they are afraid that they're going to get to a point where they are not going to be able to do it, and they're just going to be helpless. And then you never know if their family is even going to honor their wishes. So this is a very serious issue. This is an issue of medical ethics. I'm not going to go through this, but basically we need to have a similar provision. Let me just read this last part, and then I'm going to get into these candidates and where their positions are on this issue. The court explained that the appropriate remedy was a declaration that 241 was, a declaration that Section 241B and Section 14 of the Criminal Code are void insofar as they prohibit physician-assisted death for a competent adult who clearly consents to the termination of life and has a grievous and irremediable medical condition, including an illness, disease, or disability that causes enduring suffering that is intolerable to the individual in the circumstances of his or her condition. Now, I'm not going to go through this because I do think we need to have a comparable either Supreme Court holding or legislation. I think that the right to die is included in the right to life. It's included in the principle of self-ownership. If you own your life, then you should be free to do whatever you want with it. But let's get into this. Let's get into, first I have a poll. This is not statistically significant, but it's anecdotal. Should terminally ill patients be allowed to end their lives via assisted suicide? So 77% said yes, only 23% said no, and 7% said yes, only after a psychological examination to show they fully understand this choice. And I actually agree with that. People keep talking about there's no safeguards. That would be the safeguard. 4% said yes, only if there's no chance they will survive their illness. Only 16% gave a flat out no, and then 7% said no, they should be allowed to refuse artificial life support. Now, let's get into what these candidates think on this issue. Because again, nobody's running on this platform, but when you look at their responses to the voter questions, you get it could be more in depth, but you get a general idea of where they're headed and where their thinking is. So this is what Jill Stein said. Should terminally ill patients be allowed to end their lives via assisted suicide? Jill Stein answered, yes, but only after a psychological examination to show they fully understand the choice. I support that. I think that's reasonable. Here is Chase Oliver, who's the Libertarian candidate. He didn't give any qualification. He just said yes. That's fine. That's probably a better answer. So the Libertarians are strongest on this issue. They just support an unqualified right to terminate your life. So kudos to him. Let's see what he said. Chase Oliver is committed to transparency in politics, and person submitted this answer. There's not much. I thought there was a little bit more of an explanation. Sometimes because I've run for office before, sometimes you can expound on your answer. I guess he didn't do that. But now let's see what Donald Trump. This is the fascist that everyone keeps saying is so terrible. Should terminally ill patients be allowed to end their lives via assisted suicide? His answer was yes, but only after a psychological examination to show they fully understand this choice. Right? Now, let's get into Cornel West. Should terminally ill patients be allowed to end their lives via assisted suicide? Yes, but only after a psychological examination to show they fully understand the choice. Last but not least, let's get to Kamala Harris, who's supposed to be so progressive, who supports bodily autonomy. She supports the right to abortion, right? To me, it's the same thing. How can you? Well, no, I think there's a greater argument for assisted suicide because you're a fully grown adult who's competent to make decisions for yourself, whereas parents are making decisions on behalf of their fetuses, which I support also. But I think there's a stronger case for physician-assisted suicide. So here's her response. Should terminally ill patients be allowed to end their lives via assisted suicide? She just gave an unqualified no. This is a problem. This is a problem. For me, this is a red line. I mean, at the end of the day, we don't know what her policy positions are because her campaign page is blank, essentially. She's just basically running on identity politics. I'm a woman. I'm Black. I'm Indian. Whatever she's trying to claim she is. I'm sorry. Not that I was going to vote for her anyway, but now I no. First of all, I would support Jill Stein over her, but even between just if it was just between her and Trump, I would choose Trump over her just on this one issue alone. Did I post a link? I don't know if anybody wants to come up here. Is this? I think this is the link. Now I'm going to get into. I was trying to find a good article to read, but David Benatar gave a longer article. This is the condensed version of it. Should there be a legal right to die? Imagine a society in which patients are routinely euthanized, whether they want their lives to end or not. If their suffering cannot be alleviated without dulling their consciousness, eliminating their independence, or threatening their dignity. In such a society, defenders of the status quo might argue that the duty to prevent suffering and indignity makes the policy imperative. A compelling response would be that while suffering, indignity, and loss of independence are undesirable, only the person enduring them should decide whether they are unbearable. If a patient is competent to decide, nobody other than that patient should have the authority to decide whether life is worth continuing. The very same argument, however, can be advanced against the current practice prevalent in most countries of prohibiting people from seeking assistance to end their life. Although some people might decide that suffering and indignity that characterize their lives are not sufficiently bad to make life not worth continuing, other people in the same situation will deem their condition unbearable. This is the thing. Suffering is really subjective. And I mean, even with my situation, I don't have any serious medical problems, right? I get most people's standards, I would be considered healthy. But at the end of the day, I don't enjoy my life. I don't enjoy the quality of my life. And so even my parents, when I talked to them, my father before he passed and my mom when I was still dealing with her, what she did is she tried to compare me to other people. Well, there's other people who are worse than you. Okay, well, I don't have anything to do with them. Just because someone else may have lost their legs and they still want to cling to life. That's not me. I don't enjoy my life. I don't enjoy going to my shit job every day, and I should have the right to do whatever I want. Um, and this is the problem because they're saying that there's this sanctity of life, right? When it comes to abortion, that parents should not have the right to terminate someone's life, and they're speaking on behalf of the unborn. But when you're a fully competent adult, they still want to speak on your behalf. I mean, nobody is really talking about this issue. This is a very serious issue. And again, it's going to face everybody at some point. At some point, you may not want to terminate your life now, but if you get a terminal illness and you are in excruciating, agonizing pain, everybody's going to want that right. And nobody should have the ability to interfere. And the arguments that are made against it are pretty weak. They're just saying, oh, it's against public policy to support basically letting the government off the hook because the government is not really taking care of its citizens. They're not providing adequate medical care and housing assistance. So if we just let these people terminate their lives, then we're just, we're letting the government off the hook. We're letting the government go off easy. But you're basically going to hold these people hostage, that they have to suffer while you get your shit together. And the government is never going to get their shit together. So if you're, if you're terminally ill and you're not getting the medical treatment that you need, why should you have to suffer this? So while the government tries to figure out, this is sadistic. Nobody should have to go through this. Now let's get through this. The decision about whether to continue living in such conditions is among the most important that can be made. Just as people value having control over where to live, which occupation to pursue, whom to marry, and whether to have children, so people value having control over whether to continue living when quality of life deteriorates. This is why the right to life and the right to die are not two rights, but two separate aspects or descriptions of the same right. The right to life is the right to decide whether one will or will not continue living. The right to die is the right to decide whether one will die when one could continue living. This is the problem with these Christians because they always talk about, when it comes to sinning, they never want to give credit to God, that God is the one who put us here. They always want to talk about free will, how you're free to do whatever you want. But when it comes to that, no, they're hardcore stated. They don't actually support free will. They want to use the coercive power of the state to force you to do whatever they want you to do. They're going to force you to live against your will because they're clinging to life. They're not spiritual people. They're so full of shit. They are more worldly than you and I are, than the atheists. Yeah, they think this is it. They're not looking forward to an afterlife. They think that this is the end all be all. If the right to life were only a right to decide to continue living and did not also include a right to decide not to continue living, then it would be a duty to live rather than a right to life. Right. Do we have a duty to live? In that last video that I did, I forgot which one it was. I think I left something out, and I'm going to be remiss to not say that. But I think if you have children, if you impose life onto non-consenting human being, then you do have a duty to continue living. I think if you have children, you don't get to opt out. You should have to stay here and continue taking care of your obligation that you voluntarily assumed. Absent that rare I guess it's not rare because everybody's breeders these days, but absent that limited circumstance, if you don't have children, you don't have a duty. My father tried to shame me to say that I had a duty to be here to be emotional support for him. No, you imposed life on me. I didn't impose life on you. I don't have a duty. Gosh, one of my biggest regrets that I never really set him straight before he died is he got to die thinking he was right. And I didn't really want to antagonize him on his deathbed, but he was saying a whole bunch of bullshit. And I just sat there and took it because I didn't want to, upset him while he was sick. But gosh, anyway, The idea that there is a duty to continue living regardless of how bad life has become is an implausible one indeed. The right to life requires clarification. It need not be a right to assistance in ending one's life. Instead, it need only amount to a right not to be prevented from gaining assistance to ending one's life. Right. You are. I mean, again, they're not criminalizing attempted suicide. What they're criminalizing is attempted, assisted suicide. And I wanted to get into that whole Dr. Kevorkian Supreme Court case, but maybe I'll come back to that. It's kind of long and convoluted, but yeah, if it's my life and I have a right to terminate my life, then I should have the right to have assistance in doing that. Um, right, and I've read a whole bunch of articles on this, and some of them are long-winded, and I don't want to bore you all. But basically, one of these articles is arguing that there is a property right in one's life, just like you can dispose of your property, you should be able to dispose of your person, and just like you can destroy a car, you should be able to destroy your body. I mean, I don't see how it's not analogous to abortion, right? They're saying that women have bodily autonomy. It's their bodies. They can do whatever they want. But even Kamala Harris does not support physician-assisted suicide. So that's a contradiction. And this is supposed to be the progressive. They're saying that Kamala Harris is the most progressive president ever. No, I would beg to differ. Other than the fact that Trump supported those conservative justices to the Supreme Court, Trump is actually far more liberal than people give him credit for. He did support same-sex marriage before any of the Democrats. He did. He supported a lot of liberal policies that I guess it's not even like he changed his mind. He just doesn't emphasize it. He just doesn't talk about it. But he's pretty damn liberal. Except for stuff like immigration. He's a hardcore nationalist, but he's not conservative. A lot of people are saying it. He's not conservative at all. He's pretending to be conservative because that's what he needs to do to win elections, but there's nothing traditional about Donald Trump. Okay. Where was I? If the right to die were a right to positive positions, then others would do wrong if they fail to help, right? So if I have a right to die, you're violating my rights. It's not necessary that I have a right to force you to assist me in dying, but the state should not interfere, right? The state does not have to provide me with assistance, but if I find assistance on my own, if I find someone and I contract with that person, the state does not have the authority to interfere with that. The right to life includes the right to die. The state should not have the authority to prosecute people for assisting in a consensual termination of their life. Like, that's the problem. It's the interference. It's not the right. It's the fact that if I find someone to help me do that, they're going to be nobody wants to do that on their own. They talk about people, in these gory situations. That is not ideal. People want to die in a humane manner. They don't want to have their guts splattered all over the ground, or take pills and then have a botched attempt and they're stuck with permanent disfigurement or no, people want to do it the right way and get it done and not have to worry about that and have it be as painless and less emotionally traumatizing as possible. Not just for them, but also for the individuals who also have to experience. Because they always talk about the survivors, right? That's actually worse for the survivors because I know people who have witness the aftermath of a life termination, and you walk into a room and someone who just blown their brains out. Who wants to see that shit? No, it should be done in a humane manner, where you don't have to walk in on that. So they're basically boxing everybody into a corner. What are you supposed to do? What are you supposed to do? Okay, let me see if I have any comments before I keep going. Let me show these comments. States that allow for late-term abortions with no imposed thresholds are Alaska, Colorado, District of Columbia, New. I don't. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I guess some of you guys have a problem with that. My views on abortion are more extreme than most people because under common law, the family planning method was infanticide. There were no abortions back then, so people were leaving their babies out in the woods to expire. Um, I'm not a heterosexual, so I'm never going to have children. So and on top of that, I'm sterilized, so I'm never going to in that. I'm never going to have to deal with that situation. But I don't have a problem with it. I don't have a I don't know how much I can say on YouTube, but I don't have a problem with late term abortions. I don't. I wish my parents would have given me a late term abortion. All right. As a former fetus myself, I feel more than damn qualified to say what a fetus wants to live. I hope you're being facetious. Maybe you wanted to live because I don't know. I didn't want to live. I don't. Are you are you an anti-choicer? I mean, are you being serious or is this a joke? We're not anti-choices over here. We're this isn't we're anti natalist here. We don't support life. We're anti-life. So we don't support that bullshit over here. There are plenty of platforms that are going to regurgitate this trite. This is a very minority view. You can hear that. You can spew that nonsense on anybody. I hope you're joking. I'm not trying to be antagonistic, but if you're serious, how about this? How about this? If you want to debate me, I'm going to get through this article, but I'm going to post a link. And you tell me why I should not have the right to die or why a parent. I hope you are an actual anti-choices because I've been trying to debate one of you people, but I can't get you on my channel. Tell me why a parent has a right to breed me into hell, and then after I'm bred into hell, I don't have the right to terminate my life. Who owns my life? Is my life owned by the state? Do you own my life? Here's the link. Okay, I guess you just left because somebody just left. I'm assuming that's you because you don't want to debate me. I really, you can speak for yourself. If you don't, if you wanted life to be imposed on you, fine. But I did not want life imposed on me, and you don't have the right to do that to me or to anyone else. Now let's finish this article. Where was I? The right to die needs to be interpreted only as a right not to be prevented from being assisted by those who are willing to help. In other words, those who think assisted suicide and euthanasia are immoral should not be forced to help kill others. However, they should similarly not be allowed to prevent others from giving assistance to those who have reasonably determined that their lives are not worth continuing. Nobody should be forced to assist or not to assist. Some might ask why assistance is necessary. Okay, this is a big question because a lot of people, I've been asked this a lot. Why don't I just go do it myself? For reasons that I can't say on YouTube, because if I do say it, I'm going to get censored and the damn live stream is going to be taken down. I don't understand why this isn't obvious. People make it seem like you're just making a cup of coffee, like, oh, just go jump off a building, like it's so fun. Nobody wants to do that. Nobody wants to do it. Even the most miserable person on this planet does not want to go jump off a damn building. Now, what you guys are doing, you're turning people into psychopaths and sociopaths, right? Because these are people who are miserable, who probably should be put out of their misery, but you're going to force us to live against our will. And then when we start being assholes, right? Because we just don't want to be here, now you're the damn victim. How about you just let me do what the hell I want to do, and then you don't have to worry about that. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not saying I'm a psychopath. I do have empathy, but it's just like once you get, a lot of these people are just miserable. They just don't want to be here, and I think society would be a lot better off if people have the right to terminate their lives and they weren't forced to be here against their will. So let's see what David Benatar had to say about this. There are, in fact, good reasons that assistance may be either necessary or desirable. In some situations, people have become so weak or debilitated that they are quite literally unable to kill themselves. And people have no option of assistance, they might be forced to kill themselves before they feel that life has become unbearable. So, right, you're actually promoting the result that you're trying to avoid, only because they know that they will be unable to obtain assistance at a later stage once their condition deteriorates. Even people who are able to kill themselves might prefer the assistance of others, and especially medically trained people, right? Because one of the biggest fears is that you're going to have a botched attempt and you're going to be stuck disfigured, and you're still going to have to be endure your miserable life, but you're just going to have to do it without legs or without an eye or um, what a Christopher Reeves, that Superman dude who jumped off. Yeah. I don't want to live like that. And then if I do that and I can't walk anymore, then I'm really screwed. Um, Even people who are able to kill themselves might. Okay, this is because killing oneself can be messy, undignified, and unduly painful act, and an act that might unnecessarily impose on others. Throwing oneself in front of a train or off a bridge, for example, can cause considerable trauma to others, and those are gruesome ways to die. An overdose could lead to a more dignified death, but lay people often know too little about how reliably to end these lives that way. Failing to overdose properly or being found before death has occurred could leave a person in a vegetative condition, which is exactly what that person might have been seeking to avoid. Exactly. Why is this not obvious? And the reason why it's not obvious is because people don't really give any thought to it. They don't put themselves in that person's position. They're just trying to be contrarian. They don't support it, so they're going to gaslight you and tell you oh, you should just go do this. That's the common argument that the anti-natives are told. You should just go jump off a building. Like, they don't mean that. Oh, actually, they don't say. They just say you should just go terminate your life. But when you ask them for a method, they can't tell you because they don't actually support it. It's just an art. It's rhetorical. Um, they're trying. They don't support it, and they don't think that you're serious about it. And the only way you can be serious about it is if you go terminate your life. And they're so full of shit. So you have to prove that you're serious, but that's the whole thing that you're trying to avoid. You want medical assistance so you don't have to be traumatized like that. And YouTube, I'm not promoting this. I'm not promoting anybody to go jump off a building. Well, I'm against that. What I'm saying is they should have a humane method of terminating their lives after a psychological evaluation. They should have a safe and painless method of dying. I'm not telling anybody to go jump off a roof. And I know you don't actually care about any of these people. You're only going to send me some email because you don't want to get sued. I'm not promoting that, so don't even try to put that on me. With the assistance of a caring, competent doctor, people can arrange to die at a chosen time in privacy and with dignity. It is thus fully understandable that people might prefer this option to taking their own lives unassisted. A few jurisdictions currently permit assisted suicide or euthanasia. I guess I would take issue with the word permit. It's not something that the government can permit. It's actually outside of the scope of government. It's not within the purview of the role of government. The purpose of government is to protect the rights of the citizens. Forcing you to live against your will is not within the proper scope of government. Um, the government can't permit suicide. The only thing the government can do is decriminalize it, which it should never have been criminalized in the first place. Some of the former jurisdictions restrict assisted suicide or euthanasia to their own citizens or residents, but Switzerland allows foreigners to make use of its life-ending facility. I did not know that. That is interesting. I'm not that. I've researched Canada more than I've researched Switzerland or the Netherlands. So Yeah, I'm going to have to look into that. I think Switzerland has the most quote unquote permissive euthanasia laws in the world. The problem, of course, is that a trip to Switzerland imposes many obstacles for people suffering elsewhere. Some might be too sick to make the trip, others might lack the resources to get to Switzerland. Even those who could access the Swiss facilities might have to travel and die alone because any family member who accompanies them could be charged in their home country with assisting in suicide. Um, that is a problem. I mean, that's basically analogous to assisting someone with abortion. And my state, you can be criminally prosecuted for assisting someone in terminating their pregnancy. So this is basically the same thing. I've already read the statute on assisted suicide. It's basically the same thing. If you encourage, facilitate, or anything like that, you can be criminally prosecuted. Um, it's a misdemeanor if they only attempt, but they're unsuccessful. But if they actually do terminate the life, that's a felony. Even if you consent, why should you be charged with a felony when someone else is giving you their consent to terminate their life? I just don't. I just don't understand the policy justification for it, other than the fact that you're trying to enslave people to a life that they don't want. The 13th Amendment prohibits slavery, except for the commission of a crime. So, if you're forcing me to live against my will, that's slavery. I already told y'all the definition of slavery based on Plessy versus Ferguson. It is the deprivation of the right to dispose of one's property, services, or what was the third one? Property, services. I forget the third element. Anyway, I've talked about it so many times. I can't even remember what the third element was. But I can put it in the comment section if y'all are interested. Not that it matters because they're not following the law. This stuff is so arbitrary. And with this conservative Supreme Court, they're not even going to follow that. So who's going to actually argue this before the Supreme Court, knowing that they're not going to win? But based on Kamala Harris' response, she doesn't support it either. So I don't know. Who do you think would be more likely to support the right to die? Do you think would be a Republican or, well, clearly Trump, but Trump is not a traditional Republican. Do you think would be a traditional Republican or a traditional Democrat? Because I don't know. I don't think that Democrats are as pro-choice as they claim that they are. Let me see if I have any comments before I keep going. No, I don't have any comments. I don't know. I'm trying to decide. But it would be nice for somebody to be asked a question like that, where they get caught off guard and ask what their position is. What are they actually going to say? I would love to see Kamala Harris ask that question. How do you support abortion, but you don't support physician-assisted suicide? Like, you're so full of shit. Killing people or helping them to kill themselves is usually wrong because continued life is excuse me, let me start over. Killing people or helping them to kill themselves is usually wrong because continued life is, we assume, usually in those people's interests. It is extremely implausible, however, to think that continued life is always in a person's interest. It's not in my interest. Because I always think it's something temporary, that you broke up with your girlfriend, you just lost the job, you'll get another one, everything's going to be fine. There's so much I want to say, but I don't know how much I can say on YouTube. I can say that my first thought that this was a mistake was probably when I was about 11 years old. And I always say, you're going to change your mind. No, I have not changed my mind. I've continued living just basically out of force. I have not changed my mind. At 11 years old, I figured out that this was bullshit. And I have not, nobody has ever been able to convince me otherwise. And I think I'm in the best position to decide the quality of my own life. Quality of life can fall to abysmal levels. While there can be reasonable disagreement about how poor the quality must be before life is not worth continuing, it is an indecent imposition on people and an unconscionable violation of their liberty to force them to endure a life that they have reasonably judged to be unacceptable. Well, the first step is that they don't even think that life is an imposition, right? So when you talk to these people who have never heard about antinatalism, they think that life is a gift. They think that they did us a favor by imposing life on us, and we should just be grateful. Um, Most of them have never considered that imposing life on someone is a burden, and that is actually a curse. That they're imposing a death sentence and they're imposing an infinite potential for suffering. They don't think about that. They think they're doing something noble, and this is society is reinforcing that view. They're never confronted. No, they're never told, "Mommy, why did you impose life on me? Why do I have to die because you decided not to use a condom? Why do I have to be a wage slave because you were so reckless?" Nobody's ever. I mean, I told my parents that, but I got gaslit by my father. And my mom, what she said was just so incoherent. It's not even worth repeating. What did she say? She basically just told me I need to go get help, which is so anti-intellectual. Let's see. Let's keep going. Accordingly, it is incumbent on liberty respecting states to allow assisted suicide or euthanasia for those whose lives have become a burden to themselves. Um, well, that's another thing that they think that if your life, if you become a burden to your loved ones, that's not a legitimate reason to terminate your life. I disagree. Um, the what I witnessed with my father dying was extremely traumatic. Watching him cough up blood and waste away, that's going to be etched in my mind for the rest of my life. Like if he would not support because he, first of all, he was a narcissist, so he didn't even care about how any of that affected me. But personally, me, I would not want anybody to have to bear witness to that. Um, yeah, I don't want to be dependent on people. I don't want people to have to wash my body and feed me. I don't want any of that stuff. Okay, let's go back. Are there any new comments? No. Anybody wants to come up and talk or um this is really disgusting that Kamala Harris, out of all the candidates, is the one candidate who does not support the right to die. So I'm sorry. To me, she's the worst candidate out of all of them. At the end of the day, she is a meandering, go with the wind type of politician. That if her corporate donors told her to support physician assisted suicide, she would. But she doesn't stand for anything. So I'm sorry, this is a red liner for me. This is the one issue that really is going to be the barometer for who I vote for. And really, it's well, okay. On this issue, the one candidate who is strongest on this is the libertarian. Um, the rest of them are fine because they support it as long as you have a psychological evaluation. That's not really gonna. I mean, that's not a problem. As long as everyone should have access to some type of mental health facility, and even if that's a nominal expense. Um, so I don't think that is unreasonable. But what's his name? What is his name? Chase Oliver. Let's go back to the screen. He just said yes. He just said yes. Should terminally ill patients be allowed to end their lives via assisted suicide? He just gave an unqualified yes. So I don't know. Y'all decide. I mean, for those of you who think this is an important issue, y'all decide how y'all want to vote. But um, I just can't deal with Kamala, and I don't even know what she really sits on this. And her other policies are trash also. So this really just takes the cake. I did want to have a discussion, but I guess nobody's going to come up. So I'm just going to go ahead and end this live stream. And I have more topics that I want to cover, but I want to get organized so I'm not just, doing some ad hoc thing. So All right. Y'all have a good night, and be sure to post some comments in the comment section and let me know what y'all think, so I can do more content on